Good morning, everyone. What would you rather do? Stay in a Chinese prison or get on a flight with people from Wuhan to fly back to Canada? I've talked about this. I think I've made up my mind, but what would you do? What would you do? Okay, here's CTV News. Deputy Conservative leader Leona Alitsev asked whether detained Canadians Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig would be on the flight repatriating Canadians from Wuhan. In response, Trudeau said her comment was unworthy of the House of Commons. Yeah, okay. I don't think it's unworthy of the House of Commons, but I think it's an awkward position to be put in, right? Here's a seat on an airplane, sir. Yeah, I've seen the news. I'm about a.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Foreign Affairs stated that the government had secured an aircraft that could bring those Canadians who wish to leave China back to Canada. Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig have been wrongfully imprisoned in China for 422 days. Will both Mr. Spavor and Mr. Kovrig be joining their fellow Canadians on this flight and returning home where they belong?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians right across the country are concerned about the coronavirus. We are doing everything we can to reduce the fear and the anxiety by saying that the risk level is low and that we are keeping Canadians safe. The way the members opposite are choosing to make light of this and play politics with it, with clever little games, is quite frankly unworthy of this House of Commons, Mr. Speaker, and I hope the member opposite withdraws that question and the silliness involved. Really, we deserve better, even from the Conservatives.
And that's called trying to take the high road. It doesn't answer the question. Well, I mean, of course they won't be on the flight, but it would be awkward if they offered, seats on the flight for those two. It would be, I would probably, well, you tell me what you would do in the comments. I'm interested. Moving on. Omar Khadr is in the news again. CBC News is reporting, and this is from February 5th, so that's yesterday. Today's February 6th. Omar Khadr told to answer Utah plaintiffs' questions about his confession. This is interesting. I didn't know about this aspect to the case, or I didn't go in depth about this aspect of the case because I didn't think it would see the light of day, and yet here we are. Here we go. Relatives of a slain American soldier have won a skirmish in their attempt to collect on a wrongful death award worth $134 million against former Guantanamo Bay detainee Omar Khadr. In a pretrial decision this week, an Ontario's Superior Court ordered Khadr to answer several questions from the plaintiffs about a 50-point agreed statement of facts he signed as part of a guilty plea to 5 war crimes before a widely disparaged military commission in 2010. Khadr, 33, has since disavowed the confession he says was the product of abuse. The plea deal, he argues, was his only way to be returned to Canada from the infamous American prison in Cuba. Quote, the plaintiffs are entitled to know which specific factual statements Mr. Khadr alleges are untrue, Linda Abrams, a court case management master, said in her decision. To go through the statement of facts, fact by fact, according Mr. Khadr, an opportunity to agree or disagree with specific factual statements is not tantamount to using discovery as an instrument of torture. A judge in Utah in 2015 made the hefty award in favor of the family of Sergeant Christopher Speer, a U.S. Special Forces soldier Khadr was accused of killing in battle as a 15-year-old in Afghanistan in 2002, and Sergeant Lane Morris, another American soldier blinded in one eye by shrapnel. Khadr, who is in prison in Canada at the time of the default judgment, offered no defense to the lawsuit. He maintains his failure to respond was because he had been denied, quote, natural justice. He says he would not have been allowed to enter the United States and that he simply had no money to hire a lawyer to defend him in Utah. In her decision, Abrams said Khadr will have to answer several questions about his non-defense, including whether he tried to find a lawyer and if he was in fact broke. The plaintiffs are, quote, entitled to test his plea of total impunity, excuse me if I got that wrong, which here he has used as a shield, the master said. But plaintiff should also be able to test his claim that he had no way to appear before the Utah court, either in person or via a lawyer, and how he came to be of that view, Abrams said. Khadr had conceded that he had lawyers in Canada and the U.S. working for him, she noted. The decision can be appealed, but Khadr's Edmonton-based lawyer, Nate Whitling, had no comment on Wednesday. Jamie Shader, excuse me if I've got that wrong, co-counsel for the Utah plaintiff, praised the ruling. Quote, "We are looking forward to having Mr. Khadr complete his examination for discovery and answer our questions," Schrader said in an email. "We continue to move ahead and believe that we have taken another step toward having our court enforce the Utah judgment. Essentially, the plaintiffs argue that Khadr can't avoid the Utah civil judgment by recanting his Guantanamo confession and guilty plea. They argue Canadian courts are bound to accept the stipulation of fact and enforce the award. For his part, Khadr's main defense is that it would be contrary to Canadian public policy and an affront to the concept of justice to enforce the judgment in Canada, since it is the direct product of an unfair and abusive detention, interrogation, and prosecution system." In 2017, the Canadian government apologized to Khadr and paid him $10.5 million for having violated his rights while he was in Guantanamo Bay. Khadr has also spent more than 6 years trying to appeal his conviction, but a military commission appellate court has so far refused to hear the case. Now, I think that his main defense is very flimsy. I think that saying that it is contrary to public policy and it is affront to the concept of justice is not how you typically respond to the legalese that the lawyers are laying down. That's an insufficient response typically. So interesting. I don't know how that's going to work out for him, Cotton. Okay, moving on. 680 News is reporting January saw 4,581 home sales, up from 3,968 last year, while the average sale price of $839,363 was up 12.3% compared with a year earlier. Now, the reason I'm pointing this out is most people's salaries aren't rising by 12% a year, right? But the cost of living is going up by that amount, right? And up 15.4%. There's all sorts of numbers. I don't like reading through numbers. I was going to, but it sounds like listening to a baseball game. My mom always hated that. But it's incredible. So they're talking about an average price up for, this is the average price last year, and this is the price that I looked at, $839,363. But they're saying the average price is going to be closer to $900,000. But even with the $839,000, if you don't have a down payment, and say you do have a down payment, right? Or say you've got a $60,000 down payment and the house is $900,000. If your mortgage is $840,000, you're paying almost $5,000 a month. That's a lot of money. And that doesn't take into account property taxes or heating the home or car or food or living expenses. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. So it's just something to note, right? Like, when you get out of school, you don't have $5,000 a month to pay on your housing, right? You don't have $5,000 a month to pay on your mortgage. That's not even all your housing, right? That's the average price. What is that saying about Toronto? Back to politics. CBC News, and moving on from the housing market, CBC News is reporting former Liberal MP Joe Prechisolido repeatedly broke conflict of interest rules, Watchdog says. So this is number 6, I think, for Trudeau's government across, if you're counting all the ministers, including the Prime Minister, right? Justin Trudeau himself has quite a few conflict of interest breaches stacked up, but, might as well fill them all in. Here's another one. Posted yesterday, February 5th. Today's February 6th. Former Liberal MP Joe Prechisolido broke Canadian conflict of interest rules through a chronic failure to disclose his private interests, the federal ethics watchdog has found. I'm not going to read the rest of it because it doesn't really matter. He's not in government anymore. He lost his seat to the Conservative. But it just underlines, again, how cavalier our government is with regard to managing the resources, right? Like, they'll break conflict of interest rules at the drop of a hat. So what else are they doing? Serious question. Somebody on Reddit said, if you type Canadian immigration into the YouTube search bar and you filter for this week, you'll see a whole lot of videos about Canadian immigration. Why? And I wanted to look at how many videos there are. And yeah, there's a lot. And there's a lot of interest. 1,000 views, 200 views, 68 views. But 1.5, 12,000 views, right? There's lots and lots of content being created a lot for this. So I'm interested there must be an opportunity here because there are a lot of content creators jumping on making this content, and it's incredible, right? Like, people are talking about how to do specific things. Here's how to get a job in Canada, best jobs in Canada 2020. Here's another one, how to deal with visa agent mistakes, immigration to Canada. 10,000 immigrants wanted in New Brunswick, Canada per year. That's 4 days ago, 18,000 views. So it's very interesting. Like there's guides, how-tos, there's advertisements, there's people's lived experience. There's all sorts of stuff. This is a blog dedicated to birthing in Canada, and I've done deep dives on these guys before, so they're still posting, and it's incredible. Wow, I didn't realize they were still posting. Like, I'll have to birth tourism. Look up birth tourism in the back catalog. But wild, right? So this is a lot of content. It's incredible. Last story for this morning. CTV News is reporting Saskatchewan farmers to lose 12% of net income to carbon tax, APAS, and that's February 4th. It was posted, and that's a huge amount. I think I touched on this earlier, or I posted it on CanadaReport.co, but that is a big hit to take, and farmers are small businesses and families, or they used to be, right? Now, I mean, there's barrier to entry. You need land, you need quota, etc. But if you're a dairy farmer, but my goodness, a 12% hit when housing prices and land prices are going on a bonanza, and the bonanza they have been going on in the last 4 years and the last 10 years, right? It's incredible. It's incredible. I don't know the solution, but this is happening in real time. And I didn't get deep into the coronavirus stuff. Not a whole lot of new stuff from yesterday. A continued increase in infections, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down. The line hasn't normalized yet. If you're looking at the coronavirus website, which we'll have a look at. Here's the worldwide numbers. So day 27, 28,000 infected, 20,400 infected, and corona, and 565 deceased. So that's a concerning curve, right? SARS looked very flat. This is very straight. And here's the Ontario numbers. 62 in investigation, 3 confirmed in Ontario. 104 confirmed negative. That's as of 10:30 this morning. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Have a wonderful, wonderful